Okay, Bava Metzia, Nun Tet Amud Bet. What is this Gemara about? Before we look.
You already said last week.
I said it last week.
Bat Kol.
It would be a travesty to learn in Yaakov and skip this Gemara. This Gemara, perhaps more than any other, this Agadah, ink has been spilled to try to understand what it is talking about. Tanur shel Achnai.
I like the story.
Good. So we'll learn the story. We'll look. Actually, what I'll be focusing on is not on the details of the story itself, because I think there's a lot to say about that, and there are many shurim that have been given on it, but rather about the implications of the story in a more halachic context, actually. And we'll look at some other examples, and at the end, try to understand perhaps nuance of one of the mefarshim and how they understand the story, and maybe how it would actually have halachic implications. And then at the very end, give a chiddush I heard about this story that I really like, that I've carried with me for many years, actually. Anyways. Okay. What? That's funny.
Sounds like I was waiting for this moment for 25 years.
Okay. Bava Metzia Nun Tet Amud Bet. Right? The famous Agadah. באותו היום השיב רבי אליעזר כל תשובות שבעולם. Right? The context is this specific type of oven, tanur achnai, that's made up from chuliot, different sections, that they used to cobble the sections together and fill it in with sand in between the sections, and then when the sand would harden, it would form a single unit of an oven. And the question is, in terms of is it mekabel tuma, is it not mekabel tuma, what stage in its creation? It's a machloket, where the chachamim say it's Chachamim tamim and Rabbi Eliezer is mitaher. On that day, Rabbi Eliezer gave all of the answers in the world. They didn't accept his answers. So Rabbi Eliezer says, if the halacha is like I said, that it's tahor, let this carob tree prove it. So the tree stood up and moved 100 amot to the side, and some say 400 amot to the side. Amrulo en mevin raya min charuv. Carob tree doesn't prove anything. Chazal ve'amar lehem, im alacha kemoti amat hamayim yochichu. So then he said, if I'm right, let this stream of water prove it. Chazru amat hamayim lachorehem. So the water reversed direction and flowed from a lower point to a higher point. Amrulo en mevin raya me'amat hamayim. Also, I don't care. Chazal ve'amar lehem, im alacha kemoti kodlei bet hamidrash yochichu. Let the walls of the bet midrash prove it. He took kotlei bet midrash lipol, so the walls start to fall in. They're all inside the bet midrash, and the walls start to cave in on them. Ga'ar b'hem Rabbi Yoshua v'amar lehem, im talmidei chachamim menatzchim zeh zeh b'halacha, atem ma tivchem. If you have students that are fighting with each other or arguing about halacha, what does it concern you, O walls of the bet midrash? Lo naflu mipnei chvodo shel Rabbi Yoshua v'lo zakfu mipnei chvodo shel Rabbi Eliezer v'adayin matim ve'omdin. So there was a tension between who they needed to be mechabed, both of them. So the walls stayed at a diagonal to this day. The story continues. Okay, Chazar ve'amar lehem, im alacha kemoti min hashamayim yochichu. This is the point. This is the part that will concern us. So then Rabbi Eliezer says, if the halacha is like me, let the heavens themselves prove it. Yatzta Bat Kol ve'amra, ma lachem etzel Rabbi Eliezer, she'alacha kemoto b'chol makom. So, what are you guys arguing with Rabbi Eliezer? He's always right when it comes to halacha. It's always like him in every place. Amad Rabbi Yeshua Raglav ve'amar lo b'shamayim hi. The Torah is not in the heavens. Mai lo b'shamayim hi. What does that mean? Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah shekvar nitna Torah me'ar Sinai. Once the Torah was given at Har Sinai, ein anu mashgichין Bat Kol. I don't care that a voice came out of Shamayim and said the halacha is like Rabbi Eliezer. Shekvar katavta b'Har Sinai b'Torah achrei rabim la'atot. You must follow the majority. And since in this case the majority says this oven is tameh, we say that this oven is tameh, even if the Bat Kol says Rabbi Eliezer says that it's tahor, and that Rabbi Eliezer is always right. Ashkechei Rabbi Natan L'Eliyahu, which happened later, by the way. Right? This is an appendix. It wasn't in that same generation. Rabbi Natan lived later, I believe. So one day Rabbi Natan just found Eliyahu, and he said to him, by the way, my avid kutchabrichu be'ishata. So what was Hashem's reaction to this whole episode? Eliyahu said to him, so Hashem smiled and said, my children have nitzchu oti. How do you guys understand the story? Before we look at the mefarshim and before... we finished the story, but we didn't
First thing
finish the
that
shiur.
comes to mind is why this magnificent story comes from this machlokes specifically. That's where I'm like, I don't have a reason, but that's my.
Yeah, it's such a obscure, detailed case.
Just about a machlokes.
Right.
But many machlokes.
Yeah. That's a good question.
Jumping to the end, is Metzia like a conductor, or Metzia like they beat me?
Good. So that was the chiddush I want to say at the end. Is what does it mean, mitzchuni banai?
Oh, sorry.
No, don't apologize. I can say it now. Also, it's not a problem. But yeah, okay. So if it means a conductor, what does that mean?
Like they've like it's like music to my ears. It's like it's I don't know if it's conducted like they've orchestrated something, or conducted like it's like this argument is like music to God's ears, and it's the process is good.
Okay.
Or they've learned how to read the notes.
The notes of the Torah, as it were.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking when you said conductor.
Could be that. Yeah.
But I mean, it would be a similar thing, and so it's music to my ears.
Yeah.
So that, I think that is a nice way to interpret it. I think pshat is what you said. The second thing was probably is nitzchuni. They defeated me, like victorious in battle, as it were. But then you have so I'll offer also a third reading, which is what I want to say at the end. Nitzchuni from Netzach, from eternity. Like Netzach Netzachim, Nitzchuni banai. Through the fact that Torah is lo b'shamayim hi,
It became internal.
it became eternal because now there's a tool, a system in place that allows Torah to evolve and adapt in every generation. It's not ossified in Torah shebichtav, but rather because lo b'shamayim yachar b'ma'atot nitzchuni banai. Through that process, my children have made me eternal because the Torah will always be relevant in every generation, which is another way to understand it.
It's also one of the direct contradictions to Christianity. The whole structure. It seems like sort of like a shield against it. Like it's not, there's a structure and tradition, and we're not going to now say, God spoke to me, it's different now. It's or
Yeah. Yep. So those are all good interpretations of Nitzchuni banai.
Then it really, I mean, what sticks out also is like, then what's the mahus of the Torah itself, if not the will of God at any given moment?
That's exactly.
And I guess that's forced upon him by the people.
it is the will of God.
It's like saying if Shemaim says one thing, then that seems to be the will of God.
Is that really though the thing, or was it the Bat Kol only come down in order to set this in motion? To oscillate that. It really is the Masot over.
Test.
Not a test, but
It's a hard agadita. That's the whole.
Sets in motion in stone that the tradition is above all.
No, but I'm saying it was a test in terms of it might not have set it in motion. Maybe they would have been like, oh, okay.
And that's how it would have been.
It was a stress test to see if
This was a pivotal moment right here.
Yeah.
Either Judaism from then on always would be like whatever the latest revelation is, and then maybe we won't even survive it, or it's now everything's in stone. Everything that came until now is what counts.
So, yep. So again, I think the real ramifications of this Agadata are a bit outside the scope of what, but it's good that we're kind of touching on what this is clearly talking about is fundamental questions of how Torah B'chtav, Torah Sheba'al Peh work. What I want to do is read the Anaf Yosef, who has a different interpretation of the story, and then, as I said before, look at some Gemaras which talk about this question of Einan U'Mashgichim Bat Kol, that we don't listen to a Bat Kol. What does that actually mean? But first, the Anaf Yosef. So, how do we understand the story? Rabbi Eliezer said that the oven is pure. The Chachamim said the oven is impure. The Bat Kol came out of Shemayim and said that listen to Rabbi Eliezer and note the language here. Malachem etzel Rabbi Eliezer shalacha kamoto b'chol makom. The halacha is like Rabbi Eliezer. Then Rabbi Yeshua gets up and says, Lo b'shamayim. What does that mean? Ein ana mashgichim bevat kol shekvar katavta behar Sinai b'Torah achrei rabim lahatot. Okay? Meaning, what does that mean on a pshat level? That you follow the majority opinion. And so since the majority of the rabbis say that the oven is tameh, So therefore, we overrule Rabbi Eliezer, and we don't care what the Bat Kol says. And so the Bat Kol, when it says, Halacha kemoto b'chol makom, we just don't listen to that, right? That's the simple understanding. But look at how the Anaf Yosef understands the story. He reads it differently. Bat Kol ve'amra, ma lechem etzer Rabbi Eliezer shalacha kemoto b'chol makom, Amar Rabbi Yeshua b'ragav v'chulei, ein anashkachim bevat kol v'chulei, kachai chvam nitzchuni banai. Hama'amar hazeh tamua. So this is a shocking, passage. All the things that were done for Rabbi Eliezer, all these miracles that were performed for him. So you'd think that the halacha would be like him because of what it says. So since in the end the halacha was not like him, so what's the question you would ask? So why did the carob tree get up and move? Why did the river move? Why did the walls move? Hashem doesn't do nisim gluyim that are against nature unless it's for an ultimate purpose, like it's realized. And here it seems meaningless because in the end he's ruled against, or it's ruled against him. And furthermore, and the Bat Kol itself says that halacha is like Rabbi Eliezer. So how could it not be like him? Of course. Right? Hashem wouldn't lie. Chas v'shalom. Ela הכוונה היא זאת, שדע, ומה שאמר כאן אחרי רבים להטות, so when it says at the end, לא בשמיים, he means, follow the majority, אין הכוונה שבשביל שהחולקים היו רבים, והוא יחיד, הייתה הלכה כמותם. It doesn't mean that because Rabbi Eliezer said tahor, and he was just one, and all the other chachamim said tameh, and there were many, so therefore the halacha follows the many, and he's discounted. That's not what Acharei Rabim La'atot means. Rather, it means as follows. Ela shehatanur zeh haya be'emet tahor keRabbi Eliezer. That the Rabbi Eliezer halacha kemoto. When Rabbi Eliezer said it's tahor, it was tahor, and he was right. But then why did they then declare it to be tameh? Ach, ma shehayu metam'in haya mishum de'az lebat ha'chuliot de'alma. כמו שכתב רש"י, משום תנורים דעלמא שהם רבים, גזרו אף על תנור זה, מפני ההמון שאין יודעים החילוק שיש בין תנור זה לתנורים אחרים, כמו שחילק רבי אליעזר. לפיכך הסכימו וגזרו גם על אותו תנור. Do you understand what he's saying? His Chiddush? It's really sharp. He's saying, אחרי רבים להטות doesn't mean follow the majority of the rabbis to be קובע the הלכה. They're saying, אחרי רבים להטות, this oven is a very weird, exceptional type of oven. But in any other type of oven, this would be tameh. So lo plug, we will decree on the tanur achnai to also be tameh because the hamon, the random person, won't be able to differentiate. Like in other words, Rabbi Eliezer was right. Tanur achnai with the pieces and the sand is tahor. But because 99% of ovens are tameh, we're going to declare this one tameh also because lo plug, because for the sake of halacha, it has to be consistent, and people won't know to be medayek. This oven is tahor, and the rest are tameh. So, it has to be black and white. It has to be black. It has to be consistent. It's hard to have an exception in such a rare circumstance. You have to say ovens are they're mekabel tumah, even if I can find this edge case where it's not.
This isn't the only place that we see that, though, right?
Of course not. Lo plug comes up all over the place in halacha, and the rabbis make siyagim like this all the time, which is what he says actually in his continuation, which I didn't bring in the picture here. He has another like amud, but yes, this isn't the only time this happens, but it totally rereads the whole flow of the story. Because what's he saying? Rabbi Eliezer comes in, he brings all these answers. They didn't accept his answers. He says that the halacha is like me, let the carob tree move, and they say we don't bring a proof from carob tree. Not that he's wrong halachically. He was right halachically, and they agreed he was right halachically. But they say I don't care that he's right halachically. Right. I still need to declare this to be tameh. That's what it means, lo kiblu emenu. Not that they didn't accept his argument that it was tahor, but that they said, despite that, we're still going to declare it tameh. So therefore, you are able to salvage both. You're able to say when the Bat Kol says, Malachem etz Rabbi Eliezer shalacha kemoto b'chol makom, the halacha was technically, logically, purely like Rabbi Eliezer. Amad Rabbi Yeshua Raglav, Rabbi Yeshua gets up and says, Lo b'shemayim, which means achrei rabim la'atot, which means that in order for halacha to be sustained as a system, it needs to, in certain cases, declare things tameh that would otherwise be tahor in order to ensure that it's followed more broadly. And that's what the other rabbis were arguing with Rabbi Eliezer about, not about the specifics of the case in its own context.
Meaning, Lebo Shamayim, it's in this world. People are human and they don't know all the details. If Torah was in Shamayim for angels, yeah, we could declare it Tameh.
Very good.
Right?
I didn't take it there. That's very good. Yes.
But we have to go by the right of the situations in this case because it's for earthlings.
He doesn't explain
I know,
Lo Shamayim in that way, but it
fits well
fits
as well.
perfectly. Yes.
The thing is, it's only this way around because it's easier to. Kach Torah is the hard one. To make it make it Torah when he's saying it should be Torah is the easier way around.
Right.
It would be much harder if it was the other way around. So,
Yes.
No, we don't care about the Bat Kol, it's Torah, even the Bat Kol said Tomei.
There's another story in the continuation of the Gemara of this Masechet.
Next week's.
Not next week, probably in a few weeks. Bezrat Hashem, which it does that,
And we
and it goes Tahor.
Meaning the right,
It's even more radical than that, but I don't want to spoil it. We'll get to it. Yeah.
the right that we have to not paskin like
sign
him.
up to the premium.
The right that we have to not paskin like him, which is the ideal sock.
Rabbi Eliezer was Beit Shammai, right?
Okay, right, he's from Beit Shammai.
Sorry, continue. I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt.
but the only authority that we have that we cannot follow him is because Lo B'Shamayim he.
Right.
And we don't listen to Baskals because the Torah gave us that authority when it gave us on Har Sinai, and it gave it to us. Achrei Rabban Lahapis, we gotta make our own decisions.
You're throwing the question back at. You're
No,
saying
no.
because you're saying if the halacha is really like that it's tahar and there's Bat Kol and all the nisim happen, then it's again meaningless because that if the halacha is not like that, then we have this contradiction.
No,
You're mixing
the
it back
halacha is
up.
like that. But we have authority given to us when Hashem gave us the Torah at Har Sinai, that it's no more in the skies, the heavens, it's for humans, and therefore we have to make generalizations.
Asusiag Torah. That's the way the Anaf Yosef understands the story, which is not the tradition. It's not the straightforward reading of the story, but I actually think it makes a lot of sense, and it's a totally different understanding of what Achrei Abim Latod means. It's not I have a panel of 3 judges and 2 say one thing and 1 says another, which is the pshat of Achrei Abim Latod. Right? It means follow the majority use case in order to establish normative halacha. And okay. Good. I want to go off of this idea. Joe, you mentioned before this was a pivotal moment in terms of like how do things develop after this. So we're going to discuss now how right that was. Okay, we're going to see a few examples where this actually is applied in other contexts. I'm going to start with the Gemara in Yevamot and Daf Yud Gimel Amud Aleph. Okay, so the Mishnah says as follows: Beit Shammai matirin et sarot laachim uvet Hillel osrim. This is very, very complicated. In the beginning of Yevamot, there's all these insane family trees and yibums and chalitzas. But basically what's being discussed is that if a person passes away and he doesn't have children, right, so then the wife is supposed to marry the brother. That's yibum, or chalitza. But what's axiomatic in the Torah Shabbal Peh is if that woman is prohibited to the brother through erva, then there's no yibum. Meaning what? Let's say Reuven marries Shimon's daughter, which is halachically permitted, okay? And then Reuven dies, so then Reuven's wife would then go to Shimon, but it's his daughter, so there's no yibum there because it's an erva. What?
Saying someone married his niece.
If someone married his niece and then died without children, so the niece would then go to her own father, so there's no yibum and there's no chalitza. The whole thing is not applicable.
Why
Okay?
would you just say that Shimon married
No, it's removed from the whole din of yibum or
just
chalitza.
brothers,
What?
No, I'm saying you could have been...
If there was no other brothers.
Yeah, it's just much better to...
Right. So the Mishnah goes through a whole bunch of
Makes sense
examples
in
and
my head.
cases. It says there's the first Mishnah in the Yevamot was 15 different types of relationships like this where that happens. And then on top of that, the Mishnah also says that's not only true of that wife, it's also true of the co-wife, the tzarot, right? Because you could have multiple wives. So let's say Reuven was married to Shimon's daughter and to some random other woman, okay? And then Reuven dies. So then,
The only person was the father.
So then it goes to Shimon, who's the only other brother. So the daughter can't marry Shimon, and she's removed from Yibum. But even her co-wife, who has no relation to Shimon at all, is
apostles,
everyone. It doesn't matter. And the Mishnah says even if there's 100 co-wives, it doesn't matter. They're all removed from the Torah of Yibum. Okay. Then the later Mishnah comes and says that's only according to Beit Hillel that the co-wives are also removed from the Torah of Yibum if at least one of the co-wives has a relationship of erva.
They are.
What?
It fits nicely to say that they are. If you're saying like it's just not a, like if you don't do chalitza, it's not even a thing anymore. Like Yibum doesn't exist.
It's erva, yeah, it's erva, right? No, the only erva that Yibum uproots is eshet ach, right? Yibum comes, but it doesn't trump other types of erva. Once there's another relationship involved, then it's removed from the whole din of Yibum. That's sacrosanct in the halachot of Yibum. What's a machloket is if the co-wives are removed. So you see here, Beit Shammai matirin asarot leachim Beit Hillel osrin. So Beit Shammai say the co-wives are permitted. So if Reuven is married to Shimon's daughter and another woman, and Reuven dies, the daughter can't go to Shimon, but the co-wife of Reuven would have to do Yibum or Chalitza, according to Beit Shammai. Beit Hillel say no. Okay. Chaltzu Beit Shammai postlin min hakunu, Beit Hillel machshirin. Yibyabnu Beit Shammai machshirin, Beit Hillel postlin. So it carries through the different scenarios and shows how they each disagree. And then look at what it says here. Afal pi she'elu osrin ve'elu matirin, elu poslin ve'elu machshirin, lo nimnu Beit Shammai milisan nashim mi Beit Hillel, v'lo Beit Hillel mi Beit Shammai. They didn't, even though one says it's permitted and one says it's forbidden, they didn't prevent themselves from marrying each other. Why is that an interesting footnote to make? Like, why is that something that's worthy for the Mishnah to say? So if you look at Rashi, look what Rashi says. Afal pi shebnei atzara shenit yabmu kebeit Shammai mamzerim hem lebeit Hillel. Because what happens? The status of the children of that relationship are mamzerim according to the ones who say it's forbidden. It's erva to the level of erva, but Beit Shammai say it's okay. So you can imagine Beit Hillel saying, I can't have I know for you Beit Shammai the original relationship was like it. What happens? Right, nit yabmu. So if the co-wife does yibum, so Beit Shammai say it's kosher l'chol davar v'inyan. It's fine. She did yibum, but according to Beit Hillel, it was usher, and to the point that there's mamzeris involved. So even so, kesharei be'isur eshet ach. It's the wife because it's eshet ach. Even though she's not the daughter of Shimon, she's still the wife of her deceased brother, right? And so if yibum doesn't apply, the Isser of Eshet Ach is still takef, and so that co-wife is forbidden on an erva level, and the children are mamzerim, according to Beit Hillel. But according to Beit Shammai, it's totally kosher. So the product of that offspring, of that union, for Beit Hillel would be considered mamzerim. Beit Shammai is totally kosher. And despite that, lo nimnu Beit Shammai, so this is a powerful, and the Gemara actually continues here and says, why did they do that? Bishvil ava v'achva v'shalom v'rayut, and this whole idea of sometimes you have like a meta-halachic principle of ensuring that you don't tear the nation apart over a dispute. Exactly. That there's no machloket stronger than this. If I think that your children are mamzerim, you can't get more intense than that. But despite that, Beit Shammai did not refrain from intermarrying, because even though they said, according to us, halachically, right, this would be mamzer, but still.
What does Rashi say? If we show you my being,
right, so Rashi like tempers it and says like, okay, they would say, oh, you're from that relationship, so we just won't. I think what Rashi's saying is a portion, like that we just won't enter into that. But I don't think that's what it's saying. And the continuation of the Gemara doesn't seem to say that.
It's like saying that there's the halacha in the end of the day.
Oh, good. So that's what we're getting to.
And then everybody, okay, I don't care exactly my opinion is.
Good.
Like we see Rabbi Yoshua and Raman Gamliel.
Yeah, good. So that's what we're about to do. Very good, Cody. So good. So look in the Gemara. The Gemara says, Beit Shammai matirin tzarot le'achim, Beit Hillel osrin. Is that true? Misvar tasu Beit Shammai k'divrehen. That is the whole question of lo nimnu, and they allowed the intermarry. That assumes that Beit Shammai insisted on their opinion, and Beit Hillel insisted on their opinion, and as being correct. But despite that, they didn't not intermarry with each other, but they still maintained their own opinions whenever it was required. But who says Beit Shammai did according to their own opinion? Lo asu Beit Shammai k'divrehem. Rabbi Yochanan amar asu ve'asu. Okay, so one opinion says that Beit Shammai didn't do what they held, and one opinion, and they actually held like Beit Hillel. And one opinion, and Rabbi Yochanan says no, they did do as they held. Uplukta Rav Shmuel, the Rav Amar lo asu Beit Shammai k'divrei Shmuel Amar asu v'asu. So there's a machloket about whether Beit Shammai actually held according to what they said. And now we want to understand, Eimad, what are we talking about? Or when? Ilema kodem bat kol, my time of demand amar lo asu. So if you say that this machloket about the co-wives occurred before the Bat Kol came out, in the story with Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua, so then, actually, it's not that story. There's a parallel Gemara, which I didn't bring here, which says, right, the Bat Kol comes out and says, Halacha kebeit Hillel, right? That's a famous... Right, Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim ve'halacha kedivrei Beit Hillel. So if you say that this machloket happened before that Bat Kol, so why would you say that Beit Shammai didn't do according to their opinion? In other words, they held this was the halacha. There's no Bat Kol that came and said you should do like Beit Hillel. So why would you think they didn't do according to their opinion, right? Ve'ela, or if you say lechar Bat Kol, but if you say this machloket happened after the Bat Kol came out and said halacha Beit Hillel, so the question's reversed. My time the manda amar she'asu. So why would the other opinion say that they maintained their position? It should have said halacha kebeit Hillel. So even if this is what we think, we hold like Beit Hillel because that's the halacha. The Bat Kol said so. So you can really say like both. Uchagon de Beit Hillel ruba, lemanda amar lo asu, tehal Beit Hillel ruba. So you can say, if it was before the Bat Kol, so why would Beit Shammai still not do what they thought? Because they said this is our opinion, but Beit Hillel is the rov. So even though this is our opinion, and it's before the Bat Kol, achrei rabim lahatot in the traditional understanding, and they said we will defer to Beit Hillel's opinion even before the Bat Kol. Okay.
It's like who's the story about that? He comes, he makes him bring his wallet to him.
I just said that.
Yeah, it's similar to that story in a lot of ways. Umanda amar asu, and then according to the opinion that says no, Beit Shammai did according to their opinion before the Bat Kol. Ki azlinan bataruba hecha, and this is a big chiddush. Dechi hadade ninhu hacha Beit Shammai mechadade tfei. So why would Beit Shammai listen to their own opinion if Beit Hillel was more numerous? Because the principle of achrei rabim la'atot, that you follow the majority, is only when the majority and the minority are on equal stature. Then you follow the majority. But here, Beit Shammai were sharper than Beit Hillel. So they were allowed to paskin according to themselves, even though they were a minority opinion, because they were smarter. Okay? They,
Can't you
What?
just say that they're always right? Then if you just say they're smarter than Beit Hillel, why are they ever arguing?
So
Is
perhaps
this a known concept, or
what?
Is this a known concept, or this is a
It comes up here that with Beit Shammai specifically that they were mechadedei, they were sharper than Beit Hillel.
So why do we ever hold like Beit Hillel?
So that's why the Bat Kol, that's the whole idea of the Bat Kol, is to come and say you follow Beit Hillel anyway, even though Beit Shammai were sharper, perhaps. So now if I want to say that this whole discussion with the Yibum and the co-wives was after the Bat Kol said halacha ke Beit Hillel, so man damar lo asu, so then now it's obvious, the ones who said that Beit Shammai didn't listen to their own opinion, because the Bat Kol said not to. They said halacha like Beit Hillel. Man damar asu, but then how can I say Beit Shammai continued to listen to their opinion after the Bat Kol came out? Asu Rabbi Yoshua hi te'ama Mashgichín beBat Kol. Okay, and that ties back to the Gemara Bava Metzia. Because if I say, what do I care what a Bat Kol says? So Beit Shammai adapts that, and the irony, and Tosfot will mention this at the end, is that, you know what, I'll leave it for Tosfot actually. I won't say it now, but we'll see why that's why. Yes, right. I want to bring just another halachic example where this comes up, or two more really, and then we'll conclude with the Tosfot, and then one other point. So Gemara in Eruvin of Zayin Amud Aleph, it says, Hahu mavoy akom tehava ben hardia. There was the halachot of Eruvin, there was basically this mavoy that was bent like a chet. Okay, it had two openings, and they connected. It was like a tunnel. Okay.
What was it?
There was one time there was this passageway that had like doorways, and then it connected in the middle like this. Okay.
You can go to Kiryat Gat and see plenty of those. No, I'm not kidding.
No,
I
I'm
used to do it.
yeah. Rami ale chumer de Rav v'chumer de Shmuel. Okay, so they applied on this both the chumer of Rav and the chumer of Shmuel. And they said you have to have a door on both of those. In the context of caring for Shabbat, there needs to be an actual door in both entrances. Chumer de Rav de Almar Torato Kim Fulash. So they applied the Chumrah of Rav because he said that this has to have a status, of a mefulash. I don't remember the details of this. You know what? So let's actually skip the details of this. But basically, they end up taking the chumrah of one and the chumrah of the other, even though they contradict each other. But they end up applying a chumrah of both and requiring doors. Okay, without getting into the details of what the mefulash is and satum and things like that. But if we continue, so we say vehatanya on the third line, right? It says in the Braita, "Olam halacha kebeit Hillel, ve'arotze la'asot kedivrei Beit Shammai oseh, kedivrei Beit Hillel oseh." So there's a Braita which says the halacha is like Beit Hillel, but someone who wants to follow Beit Shammai should follow Beit Shammai. Someone who wants to follow Beit Hillel should follow Beit Hillel. Mekule Beit Shammai, mekule Beit Hillel rasha. If you follow just the leniencies of both, you're unorthodox. No, you are you're a Russia. But if you mechumer Beit Shammai, mechumer Beit Hillel, alav hakatuv omer aksil b'choshech holech. But if you only do the chumras of both Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai, so you're a fool, right? No, to be consistent and follow either Beit Shammai ben lekula ben lechumra or Beit Hillel ben lekula ben lechumra. Ela ike Beit Shammai kekulen chumra, ike Beit Hillel kekulen chumra. So then the Gemara asks, that's all the Braita. Then the Gemara says, Hagufa kasha. This Braita contradicts itself. Why? Amarta le'olam halacha kebeit Hillel. You started by saying the halacha follows Beit Hillel. V'hada amarta rotze la'asot kedivrei Beit Shammai oseh. You can't tell me the halacha is like Beit Hillel, but anyone wants to follow Beit Shammai, just make sure that you're consistent with Beit Shammai. You said the halacha is like Beit Hillel, so what are you talking about, right? Lo kasha, it's not a contradiction. Kan kodem bat kol, kan la'achar bat kol. Right, that when it says halacha is like Beit Hillel, that's after the Bat Kol came out. But before the Bat Kol is whoever wants to follow one versus the other. Or v'ibait ema, or I can say ha v'ha la'achar Bat Kol. That I can also say that both statements of the Braita are after the Bat Kol came and said halacha ke Beit Hillel. V'Rabbi Yoshua hi de la mashgach bevat kol. Right, and I can just say that okay, that came after the Bat Kol, but I don't have to listen to the Bat Kol, and therefore I can listen to Beit Shammai if I want. Ve'ibait ema, or if I want, I can say, and then it continues on to the discussion with Rav Shmuel. So we see here another application of the idea of Rabbi Yoshua saying you don't have to listen to a Bat Kol. One more example. Tana Rabbanan. This is in the 10th in Arbe Psachim, in the 10th parak of Psachim. This is a halacha l'maisa that we do all the time. Dvarim sheben Beit Shammai Beit Hillel b'seudah. There was a machlokah between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel when it came to meals on Yom Tov. Beit Shammai omrim mevarech al hayom v'achar kach mevarech al yain mipnei shayom gorem leyain sheyavo u'chvar kidesh hayom ve'adayin yain lo ba. So Beit Shammai says first you should say mekadesh for the yom like azmanim, and then you should say borei piragafen, right? When you make kiddush, like for Pesach, for example. Why? Because the day is what creates. That's why you drink wine, is for the day. So start with the day and then the wine, right? Right. First do borei piragafen and then say mekadesh hashabat and then say mekadesh yisrael v'azmanim, which is what we do. Because you wouldn't say the kiddush if you didn't have the wine to say it on. Okay, so they have an argument about the order. So Beit Hillel, it's either because if you didn't have the wine, you wouldn't say Kiddush, or another explanation is that it's a tadir v'sheno tadir tadir kodem, and you make more brachot on wine than you do on the day. Okay, and the halach is like Beit Hillel. So the Gemara asks, why does Beit Hillel have to bring two explanations for their opinion? Okay, let's skip that for a second. So then the Gemara asks, Pshita, of course the halacha is Beit Hillel. Deha nafik Bat Kol. Right? The Bat Kol said halacha is Beit Hillel. Why do I need to say here in this specific example the halacha is like Beit Hillel? So Ibai Deima Kodem Bat Kol. If I want, I can say that this statement of Hilchata Kedivrei Beit Hillel in the context of Kiddush was made before the Bat Kol. V'Ibai Deima Lachar Bat Kol. But if it's after the Bat Kol, then why do I still have to say Hilchata Kedivrei Hillel? Rabbi Yoshua Da'ama משגיחין Bat Kol. But in this case, even if I don't listen to the Bat Kol, in this case the halacha is like Beit Hillel no matter what. Okay, so that's how you apply this idea of Rabbi Yoshua saying משגיחין Bat Kol in this story, the Son of Shabbat comes up all over the place in Shas in terms of various halachic debates. So I want to kind of conclude with Tosfot and tie it back to the Anaf Yosef that we saw, because Tosfot asks a question here, which is basically, and we'll say it outside, right? If we go back to the Gemara in Yevamot actually, because that was where it was most obvious. So we say, Right, if you want to say that it was after the Bat Kol that halacha is like Beit Hillel, why did Beit Shammai continue acting the way they acted? Right, why did Beit Shammai continue? According to the opinion, you said Beit Shammai continued according to their opinion after the Bat Kol. Why was that? We said Rabbi Yeshua says we don't listen to a Bat Kol. Right. So where does Rabbi Yeshua say we don't listen to a Bat Kol? He says it in the context of the debate with Rabbi Eliezer.
שלא יהיה מחלוקת בין בעם בעצם.
Say it again.
We don't trust people to actually follow all the rules. He said he was tahor, but people want to understand like, okay, there's a specific oven, and this oven is tahor, this oven is tameh, so he said all the ovens.
That was the Anaf Yosef's reading. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll touch on that in a second. Right. Yeah. But according, so let's start with the simple understanding for now, that Rabbi Yeshua, when he says in Mashgichim Bat Kol, it means we just don't listen to it, and you don't have to care that the Bat Kol said that halacha is like Beit Hillel or that. So what's the problem when Rabbi Yeshua in Mashgichim Bat Kol is in the context of Rabbi Eliezer? He doesn't say that in the context of the Bat Kol that says Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim Chaim v'halacha k'Beit Hillel. So why is that? Well, what's the question that arises from that? So let's see what does Tosfot say here at the bottom. V'im tomar, ma shna de kaimalan kebat kol de Beit Hillel v'lo kaimalan kebeit Shammai de Rabbi Eliezer. V'yesh lomar dehacha Beit Hillel havuru ba'el de Beit Shammai chad litfei. Aval hatam de Beit Shammai haya keneged rabim lo kaimalan achi uvat kol lo yatzda el lichvodo. So Tosfot basically argues that the Bat Kol in the story with Rabbi Eliezer was for the purposes of the kavod of Rabbi Eliezer, right? It wasn't because it was almost like defending his honor, rather than making an objectively true halachic statement. It was just he was such a big tzaddik that he called the Bat Kol to his honor and to his defense. So the Bat Kol defended him. But in practice, we know that there is a Bat Kol that says the halacha follows Beit Hillel, and so Rabbi Eliezer. And why does it follow Beit Hillel? Because you follow the majority. And so Rabbi Eliezer was the Achid, Achei Rabim Naratot. So the Bat Kol wasn't... Does that make sense?
I mean, you can't apply Rabbi Yeshua's thing from Rabbi Eliezer to Beit Shammai. That we don't listen to a Bat Kol.
Right.
So over there, it wasn't really paskening halacha, it was just defending his honor versus Hillel. It was a legit halacha.
Maybe we just didn't have a rov. It wasn't majority, maybe just Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai were exactly the same amount of people. So they needed the Bat Kol to be a machriya.
Except in Yevamot it says Beit Hillel was the Rav.
Yeah. So
I mean,
that's
at a
why
certain point in time.
Yeshua, he's saying that we don't listen to Bat Kol in this case because like so many people. I mean, Sanhedrin probably against one guy. So
right. Say it again. Sorry, I didn't follow.
No, he said we don't listen to Bat Kol when we have Rov Machriya here, 70 people against one. So we don't care about Bat Kol because it's Achei Rabim Naratot. And it's almost the same people. It's like I don't know, 50 against 49. So maybe we do need a Bat Kol.
Rabbi Yeshua would say that.
Maybe.
Okay, so in Mashgichim Bat Kol is only in the context of of the story of Rabbi Eliezer, but not necessarily applicable. Okay, yeah, I think that could work. So I just now thought of something in the Tosfot that I wanted to clarify.
I feel a little confused about this because I always understood about the Bat Kol is specifically about this specific case with the oven and not cross the board Beit Hillel, Beit Shammai, and all Machlokot. Because if that's the case, then Beit Shammai needs to shut down the Beit Midrash and go learn from Beit Hillel and stop their practices. Because Bat Kol said, I'm like, it almost seems to totally nullify their whole existence. And here with them, and not only that, but every single time they'll bring it up, they say, well, Hachak Beit Hillel, and then we say, and then there's but we don't listen to the Bat Kol. It seems like they're trying to bring up that as a argument with every single machlok, but then immediately also cancel it on the spot. I'm saying like a lack of consistency here, and I'm like, what am I missing here? That makes sense to me.
So it's a good question. Yeah, in each of these, it kind of says you can either go down the route of saying, the Bat Kol has some, the Beit Hillel's the halacha, and so Beit Shammai's opinion we don't care about, or you can try to salvage it. I think it all goes back to what we didn't bring here, which is the Eilu Veilu Divei Elokim Chaim, where even if we paskin against an opinion, there's value in recording that opinion and learning about that opinion and keeping that opinion intact. Even if a Bat Kol comes and says you follow a different opinion, there are even ideas like Midrash that Yemot HaMashiach will follow Beit Shammai, it will get resalvaged, right? Or that later on in halacha when there's new developments, so you can look back. Like poskim will look back on what a Da'at Yachid said and use that as like a kula in some instance.
Also, we do know that some places are halacha kebet Shammai, so maybe we don't. The Bat Kol said it, but still, this, as he said, let's see the thing machlokot because they're gonna check it every time. Halacha is bet Hillel or bet Shammai. Even on one time they said halacha kebet Hillel, they don't care about it as much. Because we know like 5-6 times.
That's true. Yeah, 6 times. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I don't know.
What is Taisa's answer?
החידוש פה, you should say, David, you should, is